Well, it's not very often that I bring you a video sitting in my office desk at my computer. This is where I do all the editing after I shoot whatever I shoot. So this is a little bit different, but I have kind of some different thoughts in mind this week. We have been on the road for the last couple days. I had a niece that was getting married, that did get married Saturday, so we've been in Great Falls and away from the shop and away from my office. And you know by now that we have kind of tied up the sheep wagon project. I'm still doing some finishing touches on the manure spreader. So we're kind of in the transition phase a little bit, and a number of you that have been coming and stopping by on your vacations have been asking kind of the normal question, what's next? So a little bit of this video is to address what's next, and it involves a number of different things. It involves the history of this shop. It involves my involvement with Rick Bischoff, who you have all met with the Luminary Shop. He did videos for a couple of years. He hasn't for a couple of years. And it involves the hotel building, and it involves another building across the street that maybe I haven't really introduced you much to, but it's kind of an integral part of what's next. Most of you probably remember the whole brainchild of this carriage shop was the brainchild of my brother-in-law, Rick Bischoff. My wife and I were still in Kansas at the time in the late 70s. My wife was an ER nurse at Fort Riley. She had spent 3 years doing return service in the Army there for her being put through nurses training. So she was an RN, and she went into Fort Riley as a first lieutenant and came out as a captain. Well, when she came out, we were deciding what we wanted to do, and it was either stay in the military and go to Germany or take the discharge and come back to Montana. And obviously we took the discharge. Diane took the discharge, and we came back to Montana. Rick's idea was to delve into the carriage trade and do some wheel work. He and I both had been working feedlots. Some of this stuff I think you all remember from the introduction video when I introduced Rick and his channel and the carriage lamps. So anyway, when we started here in 1979, that was 45 years ago. This was an old building. It had been a mechanics building. I think since its inception, this building was first registered at the local clerk and recorder's house by John Monagle in 1898. And it has been a mechanic service for a long time. When we first moved here, I met a man whose name was Mike Zimmerman, who mechanicked here in the 40s. And the shop was operated for a number of years by a local man, Sig Sigmundstad, and he ran it as Sig's Joliet Repair. And it was a repair shop that was well known for being able to fix anything. Sig had that reputation, and oftentimes, still yet today, 45, 50 years later after Sig had retired, it is often known by the locals as, "Oh, you mean you're in Sig's shop?" That's just kind of how it works. Well, Rick and I both knew Sig after he retired and after we were actually in the shop. But it had been a mechanic shop for so many years that there was probably literally an inch to an inch and a half of grease and grime and grunge on the floor in here. We scraped and scraped and scraped to find the old original concrete floor. There were very few lights in here. It was dark and dingy, and that was a common memory of many locals that remember coming into Sig's shop, that it would be a dark dungeon and Sig would be back working on this machine or that machine with its single little light over the machine. It just had that aura about it, and many people remember it as such. Well, Sig's wife Helen was an avid horsewoman, and they had a daughter, Doris, that was equally as interested in horses. And it turned out to be a number of years later that I actually restored a buggy for Doris, Sig and Helen's daughter, which was kind of interesting. And we still stay in contact somewhat today, and she still has that buggy. Well, when Sig retired, this building was sold at auction, and I think that happened in 1978. And there were 3 local area ranchers that bought the building, and they turned it into a machine storage shed. So when we rented the very back end of this building the first year in 1979, we were in the back maybe 30 feet of this building. And the front of this building was full of balers and swathers and tractors and all that sort of stuff. Well, this building was still a metal-sided building. Main Street was still all dirt. It was long before pavement came into the picture. Well, the first name we operated under was Patrick Carriage Company, and it was a combination of Rick and his wife Pat, and they put it together as Pat and Rick, or Patrick Carriage Company. Well, this picture is probably in '81, and pavement was finally put down on Main Street, which really reduced the muddy mess that Main Street was all about. And we were starting to do some buggy restorations, mostly custom work. Well, Rick and I split our partnership, I think it was in '82, and then I removed the metal siding on the front of the building and replaced it with a wood shipboard type siding. And it was in 1993 that I bought the building next door that was the old original Joliet drugstore. Well, this old Joliet drugstore had not operated since, I think, about 1967, so it was just a vacant warehouse used by a number of different individuals just for storage. Well, I picked up this building in 1993, and the top brickwork was in really poor shape, so it was about 1997 or 8 in there that I had a company of bricklayers come in and take off the old brick fascia that was on the old building and put brand new brick and tied the 2 buildings together into one building that I operate now as Ingalls Coach. So many of you who have been here realize that this old building is constructed of sandstone. And the wall between the old drugstore and my carriage shop, which now is one, is 2 feet thick of quarried sandstone. Well, in 1997 to 1998, we put a doorway between the 2 buildings and connected the 2 into one. You have seen me go through this section many, many times. So the question remains, why am I telling you all this stuff? Well, this is all background for what's next. You know, this whole idea was Rick Bischoff's brainchild to start this whole deal. We worked together for a couple of years as partners. We split up. He bought another business out of Wisconsin, turned it into the Luminary Shop, which you are well aware of. So Rick is foundational to the history even of what I do here. And as it turns out, now 45 years later, I am the longest running single-owned operating business on Main Street. There are other businesses that have functioned as businesses longer, but they have changed ownership a number of different times. I am now the longest single owner operating business on Main Street in Joliet here. And likewise, Rick has been operating the Luminary Shop for now 40 years as well, and he has a reputation for being the top lamp restorer in the nation, if not further than that. So Rick is retiring this year. This is most likely the last month that he will be in operation, and he is closing his doors. Well, we've been visiting about the influence and impact that he and I have both had on this little community of Joliet. And the foundation of it all is him. He has tried to sell his equipment and hasn't been able to find anybody that feels up to the task of continuing on the business as a carriage lamp restoration man. So we have put our heads together about how can we preserve the history of both of us here in town. I have a building across the street that just might answer that problem. This building is also on the historic registry. It is an old building. I don't know what the initial date was on it, but there was a man named Tom Singer when I was introducing the hotel that did a lot of research, and in part of the pictures that he sent me shows the picture of this building that I also have across from the shop. And it was known as the Lovering and Smith Mercantile. Well, this building on one half houses a beauty salon, and the other half has been in cold storage for the past 14 years and has come up vacant this spring. And so my brainchild is, I want to put a section of this half of the building into a museum-style atmosphere that Rick will be able to put some of his old specific equipment that is directly related to his carriage lamp industry. And I might just put this Smith Manufacturing manure spreader over there as well. We used to have a little gift store here in town called the 406 Gifts that was supplied and stocked mainly by local crafters. Well, they lost their lease several years ago and they've been kind of looking for a spot. So we're also going to incorporate that gift store into this building as well. So I haven't made this known via these videos to you who watch regularly, but now maybe is the time because it's part of the what's up next deal. I've been working on this building for the last 3.5 months, almost 4 months, remodeling the inside, getting ready for it to be a gift store. It's going to be partially an ice cream shop, and it's going to focus somewhat on local history museum type artifacts. Some from Rick, some from myself, and others also of the local community would like to add their little artifacts to this museum to commemorate the history of this little town of Joliet. So it kind of ties in with my heart's goal to turn this historic 1906 hotel building back to a building that depicts the era that it was built in. This Lovering and Smith building is also a significant building here on Main Street. I would like to incorporate it into commemorating the history of Joliet. Joliet is one of the few towns that does not have a little local museum. It will not be a big blown out deal. It will be predominantly a gift store. But hopefully the goal is for you folks that like to come visit and wander through the shop. It will also be a place for you to wander through and see some local history. And when I finally get it to that point, the Smith Southern Hotel will also be a place for accommodations for a brief stay, say overnight. So that's part of the what's next deal. It's been in the works for the last several months. I just haven't opened it up to you to reveal what's going on. Project-wise in the shop, I have a Yellowstone coach that I would like to restore. It will actually get us into more of the reality of what a coach builder does. On these Yellowstone Park coaches built by Abbott Downing, there was nothing that was square on them, and it will get us out of the realm of buggies and wagons and manure spreaders and sheep wagons into actual coach building. So that is long-term goal for the winter. Hopefully here relatively soon I'll be tying up this Lovering and Smith quasi-museum gift store and have it functioning, and then I can get back to the hotel and start tinkering with that building and getting it tied up as well. That's kind of the long term on the hotel. So like I say, this building across the street is tied into the history of this building, the history of the Joliet drugstore, how they are combined, the evolution that they have gone through to where they are today, and the history of Rick Bischoff and the Luminary Shop and all that he has contributed to not only the carriage industry but also to the local industry of Joliet. We're trying to reinstigate another business for Main Street, and it will incorporate more historical data and paraphernalia for the local community. When we did the 20 Mule Team Borax wagons, in a sense, we've heard this number of times, that project put Joliet on the map. And to a lot of degree, that is true because of you who continue to watch. Many of you started in the Borax wagons era. My goal is to keep that going, to preserve the history of Joliet, the history of the Luminary Shop, the history of Ingalls Coach, the history of the Smith Hotel, the history of the Lovering and Smith Mercantile, and keep the historical aspect of this town alive as best I can. And we'll see where it goes. But that's kind of what's up next in my mind. So I look forward to what's coming on for Winter Project. A little bit of limbo for shop work, but you know, part of my shop work is on Friday and part of my after work stuff is on Tuesday. I might bring you along as we try to wind up this Lovering and Smith store and get this museum gift store operating again. So in a nutshell, that's a pretty big nutshell. That's kind of what's up next. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.